Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Colin at Black Dog Outdoor Sports. So if you watched the last video on fire making and fire making skills, this is going to be a continuation of that. So this video is going to be how do I rejuvenate a lighter once it's been saturated by rain, snow, or general wetness. So the regular lighter should be one of those things that's in our fire kit. Should be in our pack, should be in the vehicle, wherever we are. We should always have means of creating fire. And the lighter is fantastic because it always works almost all the time, and they're inexpensive and they're just super handy. So if I have other means of making fire again in that other video, that's what I want to try to utilize before I go to my easiest source of fire making. But if it's an emergency and everything else is depleted, or if I'm super cold, super wet, near hypothermic, the lighter is going to be the best way for me to get that fire started. But how do I rejuvenate a lighter once it's been wet? So let's go through and talk about that and then get that done. So to simulate rain, snow, sweat, whatever, I have this sweet cup of water, and I have this lighter, and it does work right now. Right, Bic, first strike every time. I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it in that water. So I'm going to put it, I guess I should put it in bottom down so that we ensure that it gets wet. Okay, so rejuvenating a lighter once it's been wet. How the lighter works, it's a small container that houses fuel. There's a small button that is going to release the vapored fuel, and then there's a flint and a striker. So we need to release fuel by pressing our thumb down on the button, rotate that striker across the flint. That creates the spark, which ignites the flame. So when our lighter is now wet, the fuel is still good in theory because there's a small seal inside the container, and the flint is going to be wet, as is the striker. So how do I make this work? And you've probably found a lighter someplace and picked it up and tried to strike it, and if it's dry, it's going to work, and if it's not dry, it won't. Even if a lighter is totally out of fuel, it's still decent to kind of hang on to because it does have that spark striking capability that we could use against char cloth or some really, really delicate kind of combustible tinder. A really cool example of some combustible tinder is cattail. So if you take dried cattail tops, crush those, break those up, it's a really, really delicate fine powder seeds. And if we can collect those and then hit that with a spark, they will erupt in flame. It's a very, very short-lived flame though. So you either need a whole lot of that stuff or you need to have a really good tinder pile surrounding that and be able to capture that flame from that. So that's a cool example of another natural material that we can use to start fire. All right, this should be enough time to get this wet. We're going to then take it out and we're going to try it, right? And I'm expecting that there will be no spark and there will be no fire. Okay, so this is working as far as the simulation goes so far. So what do I do now? So if you look at most of these lighters, most all of them are going to have this silver cap, which is kind of a safety guard. So we want to remove that safety guard. So you can either take your fingernail, your pocket knife, whatnot, pry it, and remove that. So we want to hang on to this though. This is a handy little thing. So now we have our lighter that does not have that safety guard. And you can see where the fuel comes out. You can see the striker. There's the bit of flint in there. So we first want to shake as much of that water out of it as physically possible. So we're just going to vigorously shake, hang it upside down, give it a couple taps. We're then going to blow inside the tube where the fuel would come out. So continue to shake. Okay, so now what we have to do is basically dry the striker itself. So it has the grippy end where our fingers would hit, and then the center portion, which is going to be the harder material that's going to strike against that flint. That's the part that we want to get super dry. So I'm going to use my t-shirt, I'm going to use a bandana, I'm going to use a pair of, or a piece of gauze, whatever it is that I may have that's going to be dry, and then kind of collect some of that water. So right now I'm just using this on my shirt, and I'm very carefully going and trying to kind of pat down and wipe that striker face. Once I've done a good job of wiping the striker face on this side, I'm carefully going to rotate that to a new face and then repeat. And I'll do that a few times so that I can ensure that I've covered as much of that strike face as possible. And if we feel the need to shake it out more or blow onto it more while we're doing this, by all means, go ahead. So when we are blowing, you don't want to, blow spit inside because we're putting back moisture where we're trying to get rid of it. So trying to be careful when you're blowing into that. If we have obviously time and we're not freezing to death, you could take this apart and throw it in your pocket. Hopefully the warmth of your body and the warmth of the pocket and the dryness of that material will help dry this out as well. But if we need that fire right now, this is going to be the technique for revitalizing this lighter. Again, rotating it a little bit. I'm going to be wiping it down with the shirt. Again, I'm trying to get that nice and dry. All right, so we'll see. Okay, we have our strike face or our safety guard off still. I've done a fairly good job of blowing and shaking and then wiping that down. Let's see if we get a spark. All right, good. So we have a spark, so that's a good sign. So now I'm going to continue to do so. And voila, we have fire. All right, so hopefully this has been a useful video to you. It is not uncommon for us to get our lighters wet, but now rather than throwing it away or being totally discouraged, we can disassemble slightly and then rejuvenate that lighter. So there's a fantastic piece of kit that we can look into and purchase at Black Dog Outdoor Sports to protect that lighter from getting wet. And that's going to be by Exotac, and this is really, really neat. It is a lighter sleeve. It's a two-piece thing. It's rubberized, textured, which is cool, and it totally seals your lighter from getting wet. So we always have a dry lighter. Now remember, we talk about redundancy in that first video where 1 is none and 2 is 1. We always want to have a backup plan. So 2 lighters are better than 1. Matches, flint and steel, ferrocerium, solar means, etc. Those are all really, really good techniques and things to practice. So with that in mind, go out there, have fun, practice, build fires, and while you're making fire, you may as well cook some marshmallows or make a hot dog or work on some culinary skills too. So, all right, keep your lines tight, shoot straight.